All right.
Okay, welcome to the Care Continuum podcast. This is episode 7. I have I have Howard Urnovitz of FBB Bio here. I'm really excited to talk to him about some of his experience and some other industry trends and what he's seen. And really happy to have you here, Howard. Thank you very much for joining.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Of course, of course. So, I just wanted to I was checking out FBB Biomed ahead of this. Thought it was really interesting how you're focused on advancing bioprocessing and biologics manufacturing, especially with how complex and fast moving that space is right now. And just wanted to kind of ask you a few questions about how you got there. So we'll just start with the basics here. Can you share a little bit about your role and how it fits into the bigger picture at FBB Biomed?
Yeah, it's simple. We built a platform. And so we came at this from a business standpoint that our review of the clinical laboratories, of mine personally for the last 40 years, saw recently that a lot of sequencers were not being used. And so our business team figured out how to increase revenue through idle sequencers. And the way to do that was to build a platform. So if you want to get into now the really increasing field of RNA biology and things like antisense oligonucleotides and that kind of area, it's explosive. But the
Hmm.
problem is, so I state the problem. The problem is 20% of the genome has never been mapped. And it hasn't been mapped, as I point out in my book, Unnatural Selection, that it's variable region. It varies by your ethnic background. And so we mapped that and we filed that for a patent application. And so this what happens is you take RNA now, not DNA, slap it on the sequencer, and then you simply download it to the portal we give you, and you get a report back. That's where we fit into the whole thing is we're adding RNA intelligence to the whole field of medical diagnostics and therapeutics.
Wow, that's very intriguing, Howard. And I guess no notes there. I just wanted to ask what a typical day looks like for you in your company base, that's focusing on that bioprocessing and biologics.
Yeah, a typical day is, turn on the computer and zoom, zoom, zoom. And,
There you go.
right now I like to do most of my work in the Pommen Garden, where Johann Goethe used to have his apple orchard. And so I'm inspired by my environment, but I work through my computer. Fundraising, I don't have 2 million miles on United anymore, although it was an enjoyable airlines. I don't care to fly. I want to work. And so, with all of the new technology, we grabbed it all. We have our own YouTube channel. We've got everybody knows what we're doing, the milestones we're hitting. And now we hope that this year we'll be acquiring at least two other customers to slip the platform in. We already got one customer.
Okay, great, great. More about your role in the business, kind of just from a macro level. I'd say from an industry level, what major shifts are you seeing right now in the industry, and whether it's if you can see it coming or it's happening currently, what are you seeing on that end?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, since I created the liquid biopsy market for cancer and I hold the first patent in it, I that developed into $20 billion. And what I see now is with FBB and its platform is that we're going to start creating a new economy. Why? Because we never had this kind of tool before. And that economy is going to be the prevention economy, the medical prevention economy, where we're spending money up front, less money, but we're getting to control disease at its very root cause. And so then that's going to start competing with, and there'll probably be a place for both, a symptomatic economy where we're constantly treating your symptoms, and the new growth of a prevention economy. That's the one I want to fuel.
Okay, okay, great. So as far as any are there any cost pressures in the market right now, or anywhere where you're trying to maybe be more frugal, or how does that work as far as like expenses for you?
Well, our expenses are all going to be just, licensing. Now, we have a high margin, a good EBITDA because of the fact that we charge per report. We have
Yeah.
no capex. We have, this is all by design. I've
Hmm.
started two other companies, probably raised 50, $60 million, mortars, bricks. This one, we decoded the human genome and came up with one test for all chronic diseases that will prevent disease in the future for $5 million. So that's pretty frugal. And the reason why was a shout out to I had taken my first company public, second company we sold, and then I learned how to be an entrepreneur. Shout out to the John Papajohn School of Entrepreneurialism at the University of Iowa, staying up at midnight taking their classes. They taught me something that I think everybody in your podcast should listen to. The number one thing in a startup company to the very big companies is customer discovery. Is what do they want, not what do you want to give them? And
Hmm.
so that's where we got here today. And we got here for $5 million because we stopped building things that people didn't want. So that's a big lesson.
Yeah, no, that's a great lesson, because I think, and I've been in medical device sales for 12 years, and I think that, starting by asking questions and understanding what they want, and then you focus on how your solution might be customizable to them. It's not a one size fits all. Nothing in business is. So it's customer by customer. And I think that, so many people, um, kind of they just if they're excited about the products, which is great. But I think sometimes, when you're too direct, too excited, you're talking, and they're like, you can't really gauge the interest level and gauge the need if you're not asking those questions, and helping understand what the customers actually want. Because, like you said, that's the most important thing. And I think people lose sight of that, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of other things that go into being an entrepreneur, like you said.
Mhm.
And I'm glad you have a good handle on it now.
Yeah, I went to
So,
school.
yeah, yeah, right,
You know
right.
what? I went to school and you just taught me what I learned is I learned how to listen and stop talking. That's how they switched it around. And
Yeah,
they gave me all the tools for how to ask the questions and how to create a survey and all these other critical things. And so, but what's come out of it is a platform with multiple use cases. So we don't want to spend $20 million in seeing if it works on Alzheimer's, then another $20 million on another disease, and so forth. It's a platform. Give it to your university people. Get your funding in order and start using these tests and start repeating what we found, which is, in fact, we can really nail this we can stop the next generation from having all these terrible diseases that we're going through and that we will be going through. So that's the generational change.
yeah, that's really cool. And obviously, that's something that someone like yourself is able to discover. That's worth everything, right? and as
Yeah, it
far
is.
yeah, and, as far as, I think you've been pretty efficient with investments. If you're saying that um, only 5 million and you have what you have, that's really cool. Do you think do you feel like, get the feeling that the industry is keeping up with this demand, or is there still a big gap, or like how is how does that, like, the supply and demand, as far as keeping up with it? How have you seen that trend?
Excellent question because of the JP Morgan had just finished in January, and this being April. I always have to say this because we'll see this in the future. But that was it. We have discussions with pharma partners, and in December, and I asked them, "Can you just do some homework for me? Count up how many AI companies you see at the JP Morgan Healthcare." And I thought it'd be about 100, and I don't know what the number is. It's probably like 500. And so is that our competitive landscape? No, we don't use AI. We use AI, we don't lead with it.
Hmm.
What makes our company unique, our unique selling proposition, is that we uh, look at this from an RNA intelligence standpoint. I gave a lecture in Munich So that would be 7 years ago. And we filmed it for my permanent record. And I stood in front of a bunch of venture capitalists and I said, "You're doing it wrong." And I was talking about Grail, which
Hmm.
of course has died. And I said, "You got all these Google scholars looking for things that don't exist. You're looking for methylation where only it happens 50% of the time. That's stupid. You need intelligence, and intelligence is it." So I gave that lecture 8 months before COVID was released. And I had started an intelligence company, and we're coming up with our first manuscript now on how we used our platform to turn long COVID into a systems biology approach. And
Hmm.
we now know where everything's going wrong, all their systems, which gives us now direction on how to treat people. So again, multiple use cases. Unique selling position is we came at it from an RNA intelligence point, which I have as 52 years as an RNA virologist, and using AI to sort out the data that I plant. So ours is not garbage in, garbage out. Ours is garbage in, reports out, and then invoices. So that's how we plan to attack this.
Yeah, yeah, I think that that's a great strategy that you have, and obviously the value proposition is there. Um, the demand certainly. So I think that that's a really good start. And as far as I mean, that kind of goes into the current state of your business. What's that's part of it, I guess. But I guess my question was, what's been working for you really well at this moment? What's kind of been your sweet spot thus far?
Yeah, it's going to be the fact that I've had 40 years of contacts in this field, people that are still there and the new groups that are coming on. And what does that translate to is I have one go-to customer that's both a friend and a colleague and has dedicated one of his books to me. And but he's a functional medicine doctor and he's on the front lines and but because he's so brilliant, he's able to tell me what he needs. And so, in our discussions with that, we were able to formulate exactly the platform output that they need.
Hmm.
So that's really critical. So, how do you teach experience to young entrepreneurs? You don't. You just mentor them. And so that's why I'm part of the University of Iowa venture mentoring service, and we
That's
take
great.
on companies and stuff. And I got to tell you, the first thing we start with, and I know I should give it up, is cousin David is not a businessman. Do you hear me? And so I loved his mother dearly, but he doesn't know he didn't know what a marketing plan was. He didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing I tell him. And the next thing I tell him is don't give 5% of your company away so quickly. And then we give them success milestones and everything else. It's a new world. And these new kids come up with these great ideas, but they got a better access to the marketplace because the teaching is based on better experience and how markets grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you talk about social media and AI, there's just a lot of ways to connect. And obviously, social media and AI have their downfalls, and there's some cons there. But the pros are great, especially for business. And I don't think that we're at the point where it's replacing anyone. I think that it's just adding and enhancing to it. So that, and just to your point, I mean, how you were able to to have that productivity with AI. And as far as while you're trying to grow and scale the business, what's been the biggest frustration or challenge that you've seen?
It's basically the same always. It's fundraising and
Hmm.
it's hard because, we don't fit the traditional venture capital. We're blessed to have one.
Hmm.
But these guys are from the INSEAD school, and Julian Ray, who has devised all of our business strategy for the platform, is a graduate of INSEAD, and so they're a different kind of VC. We've been able to keep our company under 10 million common shares of stock without having to issue preferred or anything else because we want to flip this. Is we're not going to take this to scale. We're going to take it and file patent applications because why are people getting bought? They're getting bought because of their intellectual property, whether it was Grail for $9 billion, and it's, good stuff. But,
Hmm.
the fact is that the product doesn't meet the demand. And so we build the IP By June, we'll have everything finalized, a method by which we can detect by systems biology, both diagnostic and therapeutics, and then we scale up. So it's been raising money. Now, one of the good news is that I've been working with a fantastic investment banker who just knows how to write a really good investment memo. And so so here's a piece of advice that I give to everybody
Hmm.
is build milestones, build your use of proceeds that if you need to raise $500,000, what are you going to do with it? When's it going to be done? Make sure you got a couple months cushion in there. And when you see the milestone being made, start your next fundraising. So that's why we built this company under $5 million was the fact that each round had milestones that had to be achieved before you started the next round. Now, here's the big piece of advice pick milestones that you can make, milestones that are in your control. For example, in my first company, we told people when they would get their FDA, we would get our FDA approval. Okay, that was a learning error. So what we said is when we'll get the FDA all of the information, that was in our control. So messaging is everything, and you got to control the messaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And the narrative is very important, like you said. And yeah, I mean, the FDA, protocols are obviously not in your control. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's reasonable. And anything, you want to control the controllables in business always. But in life too, I think that's a great mantra to have. And I think that if you're going to make, you know, I think that everything you said made sense as far as, being able to tell your shareholders or any investors something that you're going to do that you can control, and everything anything else is it's hard to kind of manage sometimes. So I could see that. But as far as I guess what would your I know you're trying to get bought here, but as far as scaling goes, what would you say like an ideal client is for you at this stage?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah, right,
So,
right.
I mean, we're not a diagnostic company,
Yeah.
but a company like Roche would love to put us on their platform.
Hmm.
But we're a big data company. And one of the reasons why I can do what I'm doing now and not 10 years ago was because we didn't have Amazon Web Services around the
Hmm.
world. And so, because of that, we're big data. We're a big data play. And so, we're also a healthcare play, healthcare insurance play, and all of these. So, I don't have a number for you, but what
Yeah.
I want to do is I have a number for you, but I'm going to try and get through this podcast without smiling.
Okay. All right,
Oh,
too late, too
failed.
late. You
Too
blew
late.
it.
Too late. I'll tell you what it's going to be on. It's all going to
Yeah.
be based on what we predict will be the revenues that this technology will generate.
Hmm.
And we'll multiply that by seven, and that's where our starting gate is. So the nice thing is I've had lots of experience in these kinds of forecasts and can support the growth of all this. That I think we'll see a nice return on investment for our investors. And it's been a pleasure to make the third and my last rodeo the best. And so it really took together everything we know, and we just keep putting stuff on our YouTube video. We'll post our how our tool is going to change the medical economy probably
Hmm.
in the next couple of weeks. Not sure yet, but
Yeah,
that's how we communicate with everybody. This is what we're doing, and here's what we expect, and when we think it'll be on the marketplace.
absolutely. Third time's the charm, Howard. That's great. And it's great to hear. But as far as I guess the last question for your current state here, what metrics are you kind of focused most on improving? Is it any partnerships, commercial side, operational? What do you see there?
Our biggest KPI right now, key performance indicator,
Hmm.
is submitting publications. We've gathered all the money to get all the samples in to build the platform, and now we simply have to publish it.
Hmm.
Because in this business, and it's really quite simple, if a doctor orders something off the internet and something happens and they get sued, it's triple damages unless it was a peer-reviewed journal that the doctor got it from. So, from a business standpoint, we need to publish it. So that's our number one KPI. With that, because we're small, and I like to solve problems one on one, not 10 on 1,
Hmm.
for those who've been out there. And we want to have one pharma partner this year and be part of their clinical trials and take I only say this because Steve Jobs loved it, but a holistic approach. We're looking at your entire systems. And are they talking to each other while we focus on this one symptom? We're looking at the systems.
Hmm.
And so that's really it. So scale is easy because AWS is our scale, and we just give you a portal a license, and you go from there. So we need to get one pharma, one. We already have one clinical lab, and we need to get another one. And because our burn rate is so small, is that our other KPI is to get everything into the patent applications coming up this June. And so those are our top two right now. As far as sales and marketing, we need partnerships. That's
Hmm.
where our revenue is going to come from.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess for the future, you kind of just touched on it. As far as where do you want to be in the next 12 months, it sounds like June's a big month for you. Anything else that that's on the horizon for FBB?
You know what? Look at my big dream, which will not happen because I've missed the milestone for 30 years in a row. Maybe this is the charm, is to stand up at JP Morgan and saying, here's our minimal viable product we would like to sell here and let healthcare know that we figured out how to get this AI thing to work, and it wasn't by using AI. And so that's it. Well, you got a lot of things to do in April to get an invite to J.P. Morgan, and I know I won't. I was a guest of the folks that ran it in San Francisco, so I got to go there for 10 years for free. So that's 10 times 10. That's $100,000.
Okay.
And but it's a magnificent organization. They really are well organized, and it's our marketplace. This is where we are. So everything right now is to scale to that, get the patents filed, the papers done, find partnerships, find new labs, gather new data, put the forecast together, get the meets and greets done, and it's no secret. We need to have a partner scale this. We can't do the FDA. This should be an IVD. Eventually, big companies can do that. They have regulatory, they have marketing, they got sales, they got all those things, and they do it very well.
Hmm.
Here's the license to our patents, and so that's the conversation we'd like to get started. I'm thinking this September 2026. So when you look back at this 5 years from now, you
Hmm.
can all laugh and say, "Boy, did he miss that one?" And it's on my permanent record. You could also say, "Well, he's only off by a couple months." So there we go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, as far as it sounds like you've gotten a lot done, know where you want to go. It sounds like, FBB is in a good spot here. As far as, anything else that you are, as far as anything else that you're working on, anything else that is, of utmost importance coming up, is it just, having the necessary resources, necessary bandwidth to execute, and obviously drawing on your vast experience as well? Is that just kind of the sweet spot of kind of how you're going to get there?
Let me put it to you this way. I am sitting in the cockpit and I can see the airport.
Okay.
And so that's where we are today.
Okay.
I just need to execute the set of tasks that have to be done to land this plane safely. And so that's exactly where I'm standing today,
Okay.
sitting.
Great. Great. No, I appreciate that, Howard. Anything else? Any other
No.
topics, concepts that are on your mind that you want to talk about, or do you think we're all good here? I mean, this was really great.
Well, I thank you because, I like doing these. I did
Hmm.
one with the doctor talks, two of them, and they're informative. People still can clip, the fact that we're all moving to podcasts now from broadcast for good reasons,
Hmm.
that, this is archived and folks can see this and get our updates. I do a podcast because it helps me expand my market horizon and helps you with your program. It's a win for everybody. So thanks for doing this. I hope more people that are informed like yourself get into the game and start finding more of us entrepreneurs.
Yeah, of course, of course. No, it's my pleasure. This was great. Really appreciate you sharing all of that. There's a lot of insight here, especially around how complex scaling in biotech can be. And I appreciate.